Season 1 of Medsplaining is brought to you by Estee Lauder. With 40 years of night repair expertise and 30 years of collagen research, Estee Lauder are the expert in nighttime skincare. Before we get into today's topic, make sure to subscribe to the Medsplaining podcast on your favorite podcast platform to never miss an episode. Welcome to Medsplaining. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Zelevitsky, and today's episode is all about sleep. Did you know that poor sleep can double the signs of aging in your skin? Estee Lauder's Advanced Night Repair Serum with its exclusive night peptide visibly minimizes the effects of lack of sleep. One application and your skin looks plumped, hydrated, and radiant. Give your skin the beauty sleep it deserves. So I'm back with my buddy Marnie, and today we're talking about sleep. Marnie, how's your sleep?
Well, sleep is one of my favorite pastimes, and I consider myself somewhat of like a sleep expert.
Awesome.
And I've really leveled up my sleep game since being on HRT.
Oh, well, yes, naturally. But you were pretty good. You were pretty fierce napper.
Yes.
Even before.
I'm a professional napper.
Yes. In fact, I remember when it was your birthday, I decided that the perfect gift for you was going to be a really, really cozy blanket for your naps with a matching little doggy jacket for your dog.
So that Merle can nap too.
So Merle can nap with you too. But yeah, so how have you leveled up your game?
So I bought this product. It's called Sleep Crown. Anyways, it's like a weighted pillow and you put it over the top part of like your eyes. It has like a cutout kind of for your nose. So it looks like a crown essentially. And it has just like changed my sleep game.
Really?
Yes. I love it because I need something on my head.
Oh.
Most people need something on their body. I'm too hot for that. I need something hot as a temperature. I need something for my head.
And hot.
And then I also heard about this. I'm a side sleeper, and it's an L-shaped pillow.
Okay.
So like you have like a pillow like that you put your head on the side, and then you have a side part that like you can hold on to, and it supports your neck.
Okay.
And it's
this
just
sounds
like
incredibly sexy. what does Matt think about all this?
I don't think he really notices.
You and your
as long as I'm quiet and not disturbing him, he's fine.
Oh, but you told me a little story about speaking of quiet sleeping.
Okay, I am not a quiet sleeper. I'm sorry. I apologize profusely, Matt. But this weekend I went away with some high school girlfriends, and I had to share a room with my very best friend who is aware that I have a deviated septum and I have a terrible snoring problem. So she's fully aware of this and was very upset
she was trying to pawn you off on everybody else.
Yeah, she was upset to find out she had to share a room with me, and she was trying to find other snoring people so that I could sleep with the other snorers and then she wouldn't be disturbed. But no one would take her up on it. So she resigned herself to find somewhere comfortable to sleep in the event that my snoring really got to her. And she decided, okay, I'll go to the couch if I have to. Anyways, fast forward, we go to bed and I wake up at 3 to pee, and I just kind of like flash my light a little bit like, are you here? And she's like, yes, I'm here. I guess she's a light sleeper. And I'm like, okay. So then I wake up in the morning and she's still there. And I'm like, oh, like, I guess my snoring didn't bother you. I guess it couldn't have been that bad. And I'm like, accusing her of lying about how bad I snore because apparently you didn't have to leave the room. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then it was a joke though. And anyways, so then as we're about to like leave this cottage, I see we're packing up all our stuff and there's some Breathe Right strips on the counter, which she has given to me before when we've shared a room in a hotel room and stuff, like, here, take these. But she didn't offer them to me and I didn't see them until we were about to leave. And I'm like, oh, what are these? Who are these?
You got your hopes way up. You didn't even need the Breathe Right. You're cured.
I know, seriously. I was like, do I snore? I'm like, oh, whose are these? Like, and then she goes, oh, I'm just giving them to our other friend, like, she got them from work as a sample. And then I said, you had Breathe Right strips the whole time and you didn't even offer me one, but yet I'm a bad snorer. So I think that's a lie.
So did you get to the bottom? Like, was your snoring improved?
She said it wasn't as bad as she thought it would be, but maybe because she built it up that it was going to be worse.
So that's interesting, though.
Yeah. Well, I think she did say that maybe it was the HRT, or was that you? Someone said.
Maybe. Hey, look,
maybe it helped.
I've seen it all. I've seen it help many, many things that I didn't anticipate. So that's good. Can I ask, do your kids sleep all day? My girls are 18 and 20, and they will sleep all day if I don't wake them up.
Well, no, my daughter wakes super duper early. She's just an early riser, but she will sometimes nap a little bit before dinner. And my son never naps, but he wakes up when he has to. He works, so he wakes up. Yeah.
I always tell people when they have little kids who don't sleep, I'm like, just wait.
Yeah.
You'll be checking for signs of life when they're teenagers. I don't know what it is. They're like,
I wouldn't mind if my kids slept, then they're quiet.
You know what's funny though? Puberty and menopause are kind of bookends. And it's funny how it's like teenagers are exhausted all the time when they go through puberty, and we are exhausted all the time when we go through perimenopause.
Yes. When I was pre-HRT and having my little crisis, I said to my husband in tears, I literally feel like I'm going through puberty. Like, this is just crazy.
There are women out there right now who are napping in their offices and praying no one walks in on them.
Well, this is during my nap time, but I'll go home and nap. That's okay, Jen. Anything for you.
Thank you so much. I don't want to interrupt your sleep schedule for you to be here today, and I do appreciate it. And you know what? I'm having Alanna McGinn on today, who's a sleep expert, and I can't wait to get her take on this. Like, why are we so tired all the time? And what can we do about it? For people who are on and not on HRT, because HRT can help a lot, but sleep hygiene and what we do and our habits. And
sleep hygiene is so important.
Doom scrolling.
Because if you're not sleeping well, I don't know about you or I am miserable. I am not myself if I don't sleep well.
Yeah. So many of the things that we go through at this point in our life are all because of the lack of sleep.
Yes.
Right. And even our ability to expend energy exercising or taking care of our bodies. And women always say, oh, my metabolism's slowing down. It's like, no, you're exhausted. So you're actually much more sedentary than you were 10 years ago. It's like it happens in a very slow, insidious way, right? So we don't really notice until it's too late.
And sometimes if you're a big coffee drinker, you counterbalance it that way. So you don't even notice.
Absolutely. That's true too. We have to watch our caffeine intake.
Yes.
Especially late in the day. If I have caffeine after noon, I'm up all night.
Except for older people. Why is it I find my in-laws can have an espresso at 7 p.m. and they're fine?
How do you know though that they don't sleep in really late the next day?
Well, because I stay with them sometimes in Florida or whatever. I see them. I'm like, and when my father-in-law, God love him, asks for an espresso at dinner, and I'm like, sure, but isn't going to keep you awake. Like, do you want a decaf? He's like, no, I'll be fine. Like, I just find it amazing.
Maybe we don't metabolize alcohol as well after 50. Maybe we don't metabolize caffeine as well.
Right.
I'll have to look into that. I wonder if anyone studied it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not menopause, so I'm sure somebody studied it.
Good one, Jen.
My guest today is a certified sleep consultant, and like me, she started this career after having her kids. In 2007, she founded Good Night Sleep Site, which helps people of all ages to optimize their sleep. She is an author, a podcast host, a media expert, and a mom of 3. I can't wait to dive into the world of sleep with her and find out how we can all get more Z's. But first, wake up to your best skin yet with Estee Lauder's Advanced Night Repair Serum. Formulated with their exclusive night peptide, it helps ignite 7 powerful skin-renewing actions, fighting the key signs of aging, all while you sleep. Transform your skin overnight with Estee Lauder. And now, please welcome Alanna McGinn. Alanna, welcome to Medsplaining.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And so before we start, let's discover who you are, not just as an expert, but as a human. So tell us a little bit about your life outside of your amazing career.
Well, I am a mom. I am a mom of 3, as we were discussing, when my eldest is 16. So entering that college university stage very soon. And then 13-year-old twins. I am a single parent. Just hanging out with my kids and building my business and working with families everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love a good origin story, and you have an amazing origin story. So why don't you share with our audience, how did you become a sleep consultant?
Well, it started when I had my eldest. The industry of sleep consultants wasn't really around then. You could read the books, you talk to your parents, you talk to your friends, and, they're all kind of telling you what to do. So I figured it out as I went with her. So that was, almost 17 years ago now, sleep training her, and then wound up pregnant with twins and thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this with two? I remember being terrified, and then went into the world of sleep training and found out that you could get certified, because I always really loved to do it. I would help friends and friends of friends, and ended up getting certified, starting Goodnight Sleep Site, sleep training them, and then went on to sleep train many other families over the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and then
amazing.
Built the business. Yeah.
That's incredible. And then, of course, it took off from there, because when people find out about you, you start getting asked to do other things, and you get invited to do media appearances. And then you wrote a book and took and shared your approach with the world at large, which is fantastic, because
I've been very fortunate with that, for sure. Yeah.
Because of course, having, being a mom myself, now my kids sleep too much. I actually check for signs of life sometimes by middle afternoon, right? But I do remember those days of, just feeling chronically sleep deprived, having no idea what to do. That first night you bring a baby home and they're up all night crying, and you just feel, what have I done? What is going on? Which end is up? And so it's amazing to me that you sort of started to piece this together. Did you pull pieces from different things you read or different things you'd heard? Or were you sort of making this up as you went?
So all myself and all my consultants are certified through the Family Sleep Institute. That's a certification institute. So we went through their training, and then also just through years of education and knowing what works kind of thing, you kind of figure it out. I mean, what I always say is sleep training isn't for everyone. If it's not right for your family, that's fine. I always say, if what you're doing works for you, who am I to tell you to change it? Right. But what was amazing to me was I reconnected with this mom just last week or the week before. And I remember her being one of my very first clients. And I remember I was at a big box baby store, and we were sitting down, and I was holding a sleep clinic there, and she was just in tears for the reason you said. It's so hard being that new parent. You have a baby that isn't sleeping, and you are exhausted, and it affects your entire world. And I remember having that conversation with her, and in turn, we started working together. And she, a couple of weeks ago, sent me a picture of her daughter, who's now 12. And she's like, you saved my life. Like, I didn't know how I was going to get through that. So it's been I've been very fortunate with this job, like doing all the things that you mentioned, doing all the media and podcasts and all of that wonderful things. But the best part is just seeing them come out the other side, and then again, hearing 12 years later, like getting the thank yous 12 years later. I mean, it's everything.
Absolutely.
Well, as you know, right? It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels really good when you have that one-on-one feedback from somebody, and you're like, wow, I really did make a difference. Because the thing is, when something is not successful for someone, or when someone needs a little more fine-tuning with their approach, you hear about that all day long. But when someone takes what they've learned from you and it actually works, you never hear from them again, right? So you have no idea whether you made an impact, or you hope you did. Yeah. But it's really nice to have that full circle moment as a provider.
Completely.
For sure. Yeah. And so you have a saying, sleep equals sleep.
Yes.
Can you break that down for us? What does that mean?
So in terms of our younger age, so when we're talking about babies and toddlers, when we get into that overtired stage, so, in that first trimester, and this is where I say sleep training gets a bad rap for a few reasons. One is, the method, the cry it out method. It's not for everybody. And, what I always like to try and explain is there are other methods other than the extinction method. The other reason I think that sleep training gets a bad rap is that individuals who maybe don't understand how sleep training works thinks that we're telling you have to sleep train your newborn right out of the gate. And start implementing routines and rules and all of those things. That's not the case. But once your baby gets to a certain age, around that 4-month mark, when we get into that overtired stage, and even really in that 4th trimester, that overstimulation, overtiredness can happen so quickly. The more overtired they are when they're going down to sleep, the more wakings they're going to have. the earlier they'll get up in the morning. So when I say sleep equals sleep, it means the better rested they are going down to sleep, the more accepting of sleep they'll be, the more restfully they'll sleep throughout the night. So that's encouraging proper naps, consolidated naps, earlier bedtimes. I'm a huge early bedtime pusher when it comes to our children, especially this time of year. I will mention that early bedtime is key. And you'll see how well, whenever I tell my parents bedtimes that I think their kids should be going to bed, I mean, mouths just drop, and I love that reaction. But I said, just try it. Just try it for a week, and you'll see how well they accept that bedtime. You won't be able to go back to that super late bedtime. And that's normally the case. So better rest equals better rest throughout the night, for sure.
That's fantastic. And then parents can actually have a little downtime, and then maybe they can go to bed a little bit earlier.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, or just time together again, or time for themselves. I mean, that's so important too,
And then, of course, life happens. So, say 80, 90% of the time you're in your usual routine, especially with really little kids, and you call the shots. What about those times where there's, it's holiday season, or there's a family event or something that might, like, how much forgiveness, how much leeway do you have with little kids?
So you can have a lot of leeway and forgiveness with with a well-rested child.
Okay.
Always say practice that 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, and this is for us as well as adults, always protect your sleep routine, your sleep patterns, your sleep environment as best you can. 20% of the time, like you said, life happens, right?
Yeah.
Bedtimes are going to be missed. Naps are going to be on the go, or naps are going to be missed. But when you're going into things like travel, illness, cold and flu season, time changes with a overtired child, or with a child who has a significant sleep debt, that makes that transition that much harder. Now, it's not to say, you're doomed. You're not doomed. It's just going to make it that much harder. But going into something with a child who has independent sleep skills, and what I mean by that is a child who can fall asleep on their own if they do wake up, and who generally has, chipped away at that sleep debt. Changes like missed naps, late bedtimes, travel, time changes, things like that, colds, teething, doesn't affect them as much. So first things always start off with a well-rested child. Entertain the idea of sleep training, whether you do the full formal sleep training plan or just take bits and pieces, and then keep consistency at least 80% of the time.
That's great. So the whole family doesn't have to come over for dinner at 4 p.m.
No, exactly. But you know what? If they do, baby can still go down to bed at bedtime, right? Maybe get grandma and grandpa to help with bedtime routine if they want to spend more time. I always say get them more involved.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Right. I remember when my daughters were 8 and 10, we went to Paris. It was their first time going overseas, right?
Yeah.
And 4 a.m., everyone's up.
Oh, yeah.
No one's
that
sleeping.
Time change is hard.
And then when we got home, one of my daughters had this persistent anxiety about being the last one to fall asleep in the house. And this set in motion years of a lot of anxiety on her part about falling asleep and staying asleep. Now, anxiety is something I hear about in people of all ages when it comes to sleep onset. What advice do you have for parents whose children, I'm talking more young children now, who have anxiety at bedtime?
Yeah, we see that happening, especially this time of year. We get a lot of parents who contact us between that tween and teen age, but also, going back to our elementary and our preschool kids as well. Yeah. So first thing is try to get down to the root cause. So seeing, what is, especially if your child is exhibiting a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress at bedtime, is it because of bedtime, or is there a bigger issue going on? Right. So, that's when parents who contact us, we might actually refer out to another professional if we feel like there's a bigger issue going on that the child needs to discuss. Consistency routine is everything. It is so important to have that consistent bedtime with a nice, consistent bedtime routine where perhaps, bedtime routine, I always say, is the one time of day where we as parents, as individuals, as partners can actually slow down and connect because we're busy during the day. And I'm a mom of 3. I run my own business. I don't preach balance because in my opinion, balance does not exist. We either drop the ball on our kids to focus on our business, or we drop the ball on our business to focus on our kids. It's what happens. And our partners too. We have to focus on them every now and then as well. And bedtime is a great opportunity to put that focus where you need to. So, if you have a child who is really exhibiting bedtime battles, bedtime issues, bedtime anxiety, giving that one-on-one connection time at bedtime, whether that be through conversation, through stories, through whatever you need to do, I think is really important. Also, try not to make it into a bigger issue than it perhaps is. When we hyper focus, and this is especially for individuals, I know this will probably come up later in conversation that are perhaps talking about insomnia, when we tend to hyper focus on our sleep health, on sleep issues, on why it's not happening, especially with our tweens and teens, you start getting that battle, go to bed, you have to go to bed. And it's like, I can't fall asleep. It heightens any kind of issues they may be having. So it's okay to have a bad night of sleep. It's okay to struggle occasionally with sleep. Like, that's okay. If it becomes a long-term issue, then that's when we need to address it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you mean if it's interfering with their daytime function?
If it's interfering with their daytime function, if it's becoming I always say 3 and 3. So 3 days or more for 3 weeks or longer,
okay,
that's when, okay, now there's like a bigger issue that we have to, and then do we need to perhaps look into things like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, more therapy systems to help them sleep better.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
And something I've taken from you that I've started incorporating into my own life, and you just touched on this in an indirect way, but you say that you should start preparing for a good night's sleep when you wake up in the morning.
Yes.
So I've started, as you suggest, opening my blinds, getting that natural light going as early as possible in the day, which is something I never did before.
Right.
I was a turn the lights on really slowly kind of person.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that we can start preparing for a good night's sleep by waking up the right way in the morning?
Yeah, the morning wake up routine is something I talk a lot about when I'm doing my corporate talks and things like that. And to me, our morning routine and when we wake up in the morning is more important than our bedtime routine. Often when we think of sleeping better, we think of what we need to do at night or at bedtime, but we have to be putting a lot more focus in the morning. So, obviously immersing yourself in that natural light and opening the blinds and, suppressing that melatonin and releasing that cortisol. Not all cortisol is bad, to kind of get your body clock moving, but really focusing on building that drive to sleep. So when we wake up, your sleep drive is your pressure tank. That's going to help you fall asleep a lot easier at night and sleep better, more consolidated throughout the night. I kind of equate it to like a gas tank. So when we wake up in the morning, our gas tank, our sleep tank is on empty. Our goal throughout the day is to fill it, and we want to fill it nice. That's why you want to, not necessarily have those naps, because that burns gas and that removes the gas. So ways of doing that is being really consistent with your morning wake time. So I mentioned 80-20 rule, but I would rather you be more consistent on when you woke up in the morning than when you went to bed. This isn't me giving people permission to go to bed at 2:00 in the morning. But when we're consistent with that morning wake time, that's going to start building that drive for sleep. That's going to start putting that gas in the tank. So be consistent with your morning wake time. Get your body moving. Physical activity is so important. As we know, it's one of, in my opinion, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and connection as well are important pillars of health, and they all work together. So getting your body moving, if you can, 30 minutes a day. You don't have to take a HIIT class. It could be stretching. It could be yoga. It could just walking, take the stairs instead of the elevator, that type of thing. But just get your body moving. That's going to put more gas in the tank. And then, getting outside, getting in that fresh air, getting in that natural light. So important. And try not to check into tech. We'll talk about tech, I'm sure, but don't check in with tech the minute you wake up. If it's your alarm clock, cool. But if you can avoid checking into your emails and social media, because the minute you let in the world, that's how you're starting your day. So give yourself half an hour.
You know what? I never thought of that, but so many of us now, myself included, we use it's
so easy to do.
Yeah, we use our phone as our alarm clock, and so the very first thing you're doing is picking up your phone.
Yeah.
That's
and it's hard
really
to just
advice,
pick up your phone and turn off your alarm. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, but you can get an alarm that has nothing to do with your phone, maybe. Go back to that old-fashioned alarm clock.
Stores still sell alarm clocks, and very affordable ones.
Yes.
And if you have the willpower to just use your phone as your alarm, great. But again, like I said, it's very hard to just pick up your phone and just turn off your alarm. The minute you pick up your phone, what are you doing? You're logging into this and you're logging into that. And that's how you're starting your day, right? So I always say give yourself half an hour just to have a quiet cup of coffee, or just quiet time with your kids, or just getting your thoughts together and organized before letting in the chaos of the day.
That's great advice, actually. Yeah. And, I primarily deal with women, perimenopause and menopause age. And I know this is something that you are getting more and more into as part of your practice and your world. I would have to say sleep concerns and fatigue are among the top 3 concerns. that I hear from my patients. And I just read a recent journal article about this. And so I tell them, we know that the evidence shows they need 7 to 8 hours of sleep really optimally for many different things, for prevention of disease, for weight management, for just brain fog and irritability and all of these things. But if they really wanted to try to optimize their, let's call it sleep hygiene, but like their situation from an environmental and lifestyle standpoint, are there specific things to this age range that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we're dealing with midlife, I'm going to kind of branch it out as midlife because yes, perimenopause and menopause definitely affects our sleep. A big part of that is hormones and just what your body is physically going through with that transitional change. But also when we're dealing with midlife women, and this is why I am putting such a focus on sleep in midlife, there's also a lot of life transitions that are happening at this stage, right? So we're seeing career changes, relationship changes, kids leaving the nest or caregivers. I mean, sandwich generation, you're dealing with your teens who are also going through puberty.
Isn't it a joke?
It's such a joke.
It's a great irony.
it's from
who's more,
a midlife woman who has
more
3
moody,
teens.
the teen girl or the mom?
Yeah, totally. Or the menopausal mom, right?
Poor males in our household,
I know. But then there's also the caregivers, the sandwich generation. And then we're also dealing with our aging parents as well, right? So there's a lot that happens in this age range. So stress management, I think, is such an important component in terms of sleep. And this is why I am putting more focus also on stress management. When we talk about sleep hygiene, let's break that down real quick. Those are steps and practices that an individual can do to sleep better. They are things like keeping consistent bedtimes, like consistent sleep patterns, 80-20, really focusing though on going to bed when you actually feel tired. Again, not me giving people permission to stay up till 2:00 in the morning, but trying to shorten our sleep onsets. We want to spend less awake time in our bed. So, an early bedtime for adults may not be the solution. Maybe you actually need to make your bedtime a little bit later because you're not tired as much, right? So that can help push back through that 3 a.m. waking as well. If you're going to bed at 9 o'clock and consistently waking up at 3, well, that's 6 hours of sleep. So does that mean maybe we have to push our bedtime out to push back that 3 o'clock? So keeping consistent sleep patterns, focusing on a great sleep environment, especially for women in midlife. I always say your side of the bed should be customized to you. So does that mean separate blankets from your partner? I've seen marriages saved by separate blankets. Does that mean separate bedrooms from your partner? I've seen marriages saved, not ended, but saved from separate bedrooms. The pillow you use doesn't necessarily have to be the same pillow your partner uses. Or do you need things pitch black? Do you need to wear an eye mask, whereas your partner doesn't bother them as much, or earplugs? So really, our sleep environment is such a powerful tool that we can utilize to help us sleep better. And I think it's important to really, you want that instant connection of walking in your bedroom and feeling calm and relaxed and creating that kind of relaxation zone. So what do we need to clear out? Books, our work, our hand weights that we haven't picked up in our week, a laundry that we haven't folded in our week, really create that sleep sanctuary, right? So those are little steps, creating a great bedtime routine. In terms of sleep hygiene, those are great steps, but sleep hygiene isn't always, it's what we hear a lot about. And it's definitely something that I preach and teach and educate on, but it's not the only solution if someone is really struggling with sleep long term. So if we are dealing with someone who's diagnosed with insomnia, or we are dealing with women who are in midlife and really struggling with sleep, yes, all of those things apply. But do we need to take a step further where do we need to look at the stress in our life? Do we need to start managing and creating more stress management coping skills to help us deal with stress a lot better so that we're not carrying it into our night's sleep, right? Yeah. So I think that that's important too, of big importance.
And I've seen you say, you can divide. I love this strategy too. Dividing that last hour of the day into thirds.
Yes. My slowdown hour.
Yeah. Can you describe that? Because I think it's brilliant for really any age. This is applicable for anybody to do this.
It's a way to really keep you accountable for your bedtime routine and consistent with it. We practice these amazing bedtime routines for our kids, but we tend to not do it for ourselves. And it's hard to go from 100 to 0, right? Yeah. So your slowdown hour is really just taking an hour before bedtime and breaking it up into 3 20-minute increments. So the first 20 minutes, this is like my do or die at night is get ready for the next day. So I am a pen to paper kind of girl. I need to write out whether it be groceries I have to pick up or emails I have to send or just that to-do list of things you have to do, right? I write it all out just to give my brain that dump, get it out of my head, packing your lunch, picking out your outfit, like whatever you can do to prepare for the next day so it's not swimming in your brain when you go to sleep or when you do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. The next 20 minutes is all about you. So it's, brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, changing your pajamas, doing all the skincare, all the amazing things that we need to do. That's that 20 minutes. And then the last 20 minutes is really all about you. So what kind of relaxation activities can you include in your bedtime routine and what works for you? I have a lot of clients who will say, I included a bath because we all know that a bath is relaxing and it could be great to add at bedtime. But if you hate taking a bath, don't include that into your bedtime routine. And you laugh, but it's funny how many clients I'm like, you hate the bath. Like now you're just going to bed mad because you have to take a bath.
No, I'm laughing because it reminds me of the patients
I laugh too.
That are being told you have to. They're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's like working. They're not. It's not an enjoyable process for them. But someone said this is what you have to do to sleep, and it just causes more distress.
Exactly. So really setting up that 20 minutes for you. What works for you? It could be reading. It could be meditation. It could be just talking to your partner. It could just be, whatever it is. It could be, and I will say this, and then people might be shocked, but it could be just watching an episode of like your favorite show. Yes, not all tech is bad, at bedtime. If there's a show that's going to help you forget your day and make you laugh a little bit, one episode is okay, not an entire season. Go for it, So include that activity that's going to help you drift off that much easier.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned the hard way. Don't log on to the work charts at bedtime. That you're going to see something and you're just going to, that's a trigger. So no work at all.
I always say though, I will say the irony is never lost on me that I built a sleep business on very little sleep because when I built the business, as I'm sure you know, it was when they were napping and when they went to bed at night, I was home with 3 kids, right? Yeah. So I was full-time mom and trying to build a business. So I get it. I understand that. But trying to set those boundaries as best you can help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I launched a perimenopause clinic in the throes of perimenopause with wicked brain fog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and every symptom in the book.
Yeah.
And yes, and we can do hard things.
We can absolutely do hard things. Yes.
So one thing that seems pretty common to women of all ages, maybe men too. I'm not judging, but this seems to be a uniquely female problem, is that so many women stay up late because it's the end of the day when the work is done, the house is clean, everybody's happy, you've done everything you need to do for everybody else.
Yeah.
Parents, spouse, work, kids, whatever it is. That's the only time you have to yourself at night. And I'm guilty of this myself.
As am I.
It can be really, really hard to say to yourself, I need to go to sleep rather than spend midnight to 1 a.m. finally reading or catching up on the latest gossip, Hollywood gossip, or whatever it is. That unwinding can sometimes impair your sleep.
There was a headline that was going around a few years ago. I think it was right after COVID, where it was called bedtime revenge procrastination or revenge procrastination bedtime. I'm saying it probably in the wrong, right? And for that exact reason, right? And it is primarily women, and I have no problem saying that. And it's the kids are taken care of, dinner's over, chores are done, responsibilities are done. And it's like, please don't tell me what to do. Like these evening hours are gold. And that's where I talk a lot about tech, and I always felt really bad telling, especially women, stay away from tech at bedtime because that's what you hear, right? And I mean, there's a reason for it. It can amplify our stress. We want to stay away from those bright lights before we go to bed. And I truly do think that if you are an individual who is really struggling with sleep and perhaps has been diagnosed with insomnia, removing tech from the bedroom is the best thing you can do because it really, truly is, in my opinion, the reason why we are such a sleep-deprived society. But if you are someone who knows you have to work on your sleep and it's not that terrible, and you just need to take small steps, if you want to text with your friend at night because they fill your tank, do it. Set the boundaries, right? Don't text with the friends who don't fill your tank, right? Or the family who doesn't fill your tank. If there's a show, like I said before, that you can watch, we all have like our feel-good sitcoms. If you want to watch an episode, watch an episode.
Absolutely.
Stay away from the news if the news is triggering. Stay away from your work files if that's triggering. There's those social media accounts that don't make you feel great, but then there's also the ones that make you feel really good. So, setting boundaries on what you allow in at the evening, even if it is tech, is okay. But at some point, you do need to create that bedtime, and you do need to try to go to sleep. So again, this isn't me giving you permission to like party till 2:00 in the morning, but at night in those evening hours, if what you're doing just helps alleviate some of that stress and some of that day you've had, I say go for it.
I think that's really fair.
Yeah.
I don't like all of these like hard rules.
Yeah.
My daughter used to fall asleep to the show Friends.
Yeah, I love Friends. That's
she
my
said,
favorite
Mom,
show.
Nothing bad ever happens.
Yeah.
And I know what's going to happen.
There's always a happy ending.
I've memorized every episode, so I know everything. It's like an old friend, like literally an old friend coming to visit at night, But I agree, because not everything we do on our devices is bad.
No.
Like I said, if I'm reading a magazine about, celebrity gossip, hey, that fills my tank in a way, because it's something that takes my mind far away from the day.
Totally. And there's a lot of apps that can really help, like meditation apps and mindful breathing apps. I'm a huge proponent of mindful breathing. Sometimes the act of learning how to meditate, I know for myself, is overwhelming, because it's like, now I have to learn how to, I don't have time to learn how to meditate. So that's another tip that I'll give women, especially as well, who are learning as a stress management tool. If you're looking for something, an activity to calm your heart rate down and be more mindful in thought and be in a more meditative state, if you don't want to learn the act of meditation, what is an activity that can get you into a more present state of mind? It could be walking, it could be baking, it could be cooking, it could be cleaning your house. It doesn't have to be the actual act. For me, it's walking. I've been doing it since I was a teen. It's a way that I organize my thoughts. It's a way that I release my stress. I always say it's what helped me get through my divorce. Like it's what you need to do to get you to the finish line. So choose an activity that works for you, and allow yourself time throughout the day to work out. I always say give yourself time to stress the fuck out during the day, because you don't want to do it at 3:00 or 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's so easy for us to not do that is because it's so easy for us to distract ourselves throughout the day. So any problem or worry or, anything we can just push down with every distraction. But then what happens when you go to sleep at night, or you fall asleep great, but then you wake up at 3:00 in the morning? What pops into your head, because those distractions are gone? Is that worry? Is that problem? So it's called the act actually of constructive worry. I call it a personal pause, but give yourself time throughout the day to write out a list. What is the problem and what are some solutions? You don't have to solve the problem in that moment, but take some steps to, it could be booking an appointment, finding out more research, whatever you need to do, so that when you wake up at 3:00 in the morning, you think, I've thought about it today, worked through as much as I can. I'll work through it again. Now is not the time to think about it. So a lot of what we do during the day, morning routine, giving yourself that personal pause, working out your stress throughout the day, can actually help us sleep a lot better at night.
Yeah. I actually often tell patients, meditating doesn't have to be sitting in silence.
Exactly.
With your hands, like this.
Yeah.
Anything that gets you out of your head and into your body and helps you kind of metabolize that mental stress is meditation.
I agree.
Whatever that activity might be. For me, exercise is sometimes meditation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes I feel like I work through a lot of my stress just, whatever I'm doing exercise-wise. I feel like it is a good opportunity just to literally be so in my body
100%.
that I can't possibly be caught up in my thoughts. All right. So we want to prioritize our own sleep, and we don't want to be tempted to have that revenge. So, staying awake, stealing time back for ourselves.
Yeah.
But we all deserve some downtime. We all deserve some quality time for ourselves, for our own interests. Do you have any advice for folding that into the day rather than having to sacrifice our sleep for it?
Well, I think it's important that we have to make the time. So you have to put that time into your schedule.
Okay.
And if we can make time for everybody else, and we do it so well, and when I say we, I am talking primarily about women, for our kids, for our partners, for our family, for our coworkers, we have to be able to make that time for ourselves. So does that mean maybe getting up a little bit earlier in the morning, giving yourself that extra time? Does it mean carving it into the day? create that, it's a 5-minute action. So when I talk about action and motivation, often we think we have to be more motivated to take action, but it's actually the other way around. And so when you take 5 minutes of the day, that's all you might need just to start. And it could be a 5-minute walk. It could be just mindlessly scrolling if that's what you want to do, or 5 minutes painting or knitting or whatever. When you start seeing how your body and mind respond to that 5 minutes, that then allows you to become more motivated to take an extra 5 minutes and to continue doing it into your routine. So really just giving yourself that time throughout the day and scheduling it in if you have to do whatever whatever activity you want. Look for the joy, like create joy in your life. So is it something like as small as reading for 5 minutes, or do you want to take a new class in something creatively, right? Dance, painting, knitting, crocheting, photography, cooking. What can you do that's just for yourself? Working out. Give yourself permission to understand that it's okay to do that, to give yourself 30 minutes, an hour a day. We can't commit to an hour a day. Why can't we commit to an hour a day?
Sure.
Right? Or you just have to be consistent with it.
Well, start. I like that you're saying start small. Because
we all know
when your kids are small, you're lucky to go to the bathroom by yourself.
100%. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, fit it in when you can.
Well, listen, Alanna, it has been such an enlightening conversation. I think what I've really appreciated about this is you're just giving people permission to do things they enjoy, not feel like they have to fit themselves into this box or beat themselves up over something we all struggle with at some point or another, which is trouble staying or falling asleep, right? So I really think you've given some practical start today advice for our viewers and listeners. And so I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Medsplaining. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM. And if you like this episode, the best thing you can do is tell a friend or rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast so other women can discover it. And don't forget, if you're listening to this, you may be happy to know that we video every single episode, so you can watch it if you prefer on YouTube. See you next week. Medsplaining is produced by Ghost Bureau. Thank you for tuning in to Medsplaining. While we strive to provide accurate and insightful information, this podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The opinions expressed by our host and guests are their own and should not be interpreted as medical advice. Every individual's health situation is unique, and it is crucial to consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your specific concerns and conditions. Additionally, any links, resources, or references mentioned in our episodes are provided for informational purposes only and are not sponsored by Medsplaining. The producers and hosts of Medsplaining assume no responsibility or liability for any actions taken as a result of listening to our podcast. We encourage you to use the information presented here as a starting point for discussions with your healthcare provider. Information and references are subject to change based on scientific evidence as it evolves over time. The hosts and producers of Medsplaining are not responsible for future changes to the information and references and assume no obligation to update based on future developments. Remember, your health and well-being are paramount. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to exploring more topics in women's health with you in future episodes.